Welcome back to the deep dive, where you give us the sources and we provide the clarity. Today, we are getting into a really complex but also incredibly rewarding world: organic skincare formulation. And this isn't just about, mixing pretty extracts together.
Not at all.
It's a real balancing act. You've got chemistry, you have these stringent international compliance rules, and then this relentless pursuit of consumer trust. So our mission today is really practical. We want to pull out the key actionable steps you need to take an organic idea and create a product that is, well, compliant, credible, and genuinely sustainable.
Right.
We need to figure out how to translate those really high consumer expectations for transparency, that whole clean label promise, into a workflow that actually works, whether you're just starting out or, ready to scale.
And what's so fascinating is that the whole landscape is really shaped by two interlocking forces. The first is COSMOS certification. This has really emerged as the global authority. It unifies all the natural and organic claims, and it creates this single, credible benchmark. Then, the second force is just the sheer market demand for total transparency.
And by that you mean?
I mean clean labels, verifiable sustainability, and absolutely rigorous safety testing. You just can't win over the modern consumer without proving you've nailed all three of those things.
So if that's the landscape, what's the path we're tracing today? We're going to go from the regulatory rulebook all the way to the final package on the shelf. We'll unpack how you select COSMOS-aligned ingredients, how you structure those clean label formulas to handle the stability challenges.
That's just significant.
Right. And then how to create that documentation backbone that proves every single claim you make.
Let's start with that regulatory backbone then, because it really sets the floor for everything else. For any product being sold in Europe, you absolutely must comply with the EU Cosmetic Regulation 1223/2009.
And it's post-Brexit UK versions, I assume?
And its UK equivalence, yes. This regulation is the legal mandate for safety. It governs everything from safety assessments to ingredient restrictions, marketing claims, all of it. Now, if 1223/2009 is the law you have to follow,
The mandatory part.
exactly, then COSMOS certification is the strategic choice. It's the credibility ceiling. It's not the law, but it signals that you adhered to this audited, standardized metric for organic content and clean inputs.
So for retailers and consumers, it's a shortcut.
It's an instant marker of premium organic integrity, especially in those prestige markets.
I understand the difference there, but if I'm a small brand, why would I take on the huge cost and time commitment for Cosmos if I'm already complying with EU law? Is that strategic advantage really worth such a massive hurdle?
That is a really important question. The value is market access and speed to trust.
Speed to trust. I like
Yeah.
that.
Think about it. EU law only verifies that your product is safe. Cosmos verifies your entire process integrity. And recent developments, particularly from 2023 to 2025, have pushed this even further. They're demanding much tighter documentation, increased audit readiness.
So it's getting even harder.
It is. And there's harmonized allergen and fragrance disclosures. This complexity means that to stay in good standing, you have to treat your documentation, your supplier qualifications, traceability records, test methods, as a continuous living part of your business.
So the cost of certification basically buys you a premium position.
And the ability to pass retailer due diligence immediately.
So the complexity isn't just in the chemistry lab, it's in the paper trail.
Exactly.
It sounds like if you want to play at that high-end level, audited documentation is completely non-negotiable.
It is. You need disciplined documentation, rigorous supplier qualification, and ongoing surveillance to pass those audits. If you have Cosmos, the retailer knows you've already jumped through the highest hoops for them.
That brings us pretty organically to the fun part, the ingredients. Because once that rulebook is in place, it immediately starts to constrain your choices. And those selections, they dictate everything: performance, texture, and that whole narrative of consumer trust. Our sources pointed to some really great examples of favored Cosmos certified ingredients that, hit both high performance and compliance.
Right.
Think of Cosmos Organic Aloe Vera Juice. It's just an incredible soothing base that replaces plain water in a formula, and it adds immediate skin benefit.
A huge upgrade from just aqua.
A huge upgrade. Or for emollients and antioxidant support, you see high-quality cold-pressed oils like Cosmos Organic Rosehip Seed Oil. And for a stable, balanced oil, Cosmos Organic Jojoba Oil is really a benchmark ingredient.
And that ingredient list leads us directly into defining the clean label promise, which, frankly, is often harder to achieve than just being organic. Clean label, in formulation terms, means you are consciously reducing synthetics and prioritizing plant-derived components.
So in practice, what does that mean in the lab?
Practically, it means favoring things like plant-derived, non-ionic surfactants, your cocoa glucosides, your diesel glucosides, over the harsher petrochemical-derived options. It also means relying on plant-based emulsifiers to bind everything together instead of synthetic polymers.
But doesn't that create a technical trade-off? I mean, non-ionic surfactants are milder, yes, but they don't foam as much. And consumers often equate a rich foam with feeling clean. How do you manage that expectation?
That's a perfect example of the strategic challenge. You have to manage expectations and really focus on performance. You move the conversation away from harsh stripping foam and towards a gentler, milky cleanse. Plus, a clean label requires scrutiny beyond just the main ingredients. You're limiting processing aids to only those with a clear organic history. You're using naturally derived solvents that are COSMOS compatible. Every single drop matters.
Okay, another huge driver right now is sensitivity, and that conversation almost always comes back to fragrances. For these clean label products, what's the strategy for handling essential oils and other allergens?
The safest clean labels are often just fragrance-free. That immediately addresses a huge segment of the market with heightened sensitivities.
Makes sense.
If, however, you do choose to use allergenic fragrances or essential oils, even organic ones, you have to be completely transparent. Explicit allergen declarations are required. You need to control those compounds, like limon or linalool, keep them at minimal safe levels, and declare them clearly on the label. It's about consumer safety and compliance.
Okay, so we got the formula, but as you said, the claims mean nothing without the proof. So let's talk about the hard science of integrity, traceability, and testing. How do we prove that the rosehip oil in the bottle wasn't, cut with something else?
Organic integrity is built on one thing, an unbreakable chain of custody.
Yeah.
Total traceability.
From farm to bottle.
Literally. The brand must be able to trace every single input, the aloe, the jojoba, the rosehip, all the way back to its specific farm or extraction site. And this means recording not just where it came from, but the specific farming practices, the processing methods, every step of transportation. You're creating a verifiable story.
What does that look like in terms of the actual paperwork you need? It sounds overwhelming.
It is intensive, but it is essential. We call it the living dossier.
The living dossier.
Here, for every single ingredient supplier, you need a robust set of correspondent documents. Their organic certificates, proof of third-party audits, and any specific certifications verifying sustainable or ethical farming practices. This program doesn't just satisfy COSMOS. It actively differentiates your brand. When an audit happens, you can immediately pull up the batch record, the farm certificate, and the QC data.
So traceability proves the source. Testing proves the safety and the longevity. Let's anchor this with the required safety checks.
Safety testing really has two main pillars. The first is stability testing. This is absolutely critical for establishing shelf life.
Yep.
You subject the final product to accelerated stress-different temperatures, high humidity, light exposure over a set period. And you're looking for weaknesses.
Like what?
Like pH stability, which can affect your preservatives, color changes from oxidation, and viscosity shifts. Is the product getting too thick or runny? If it separates after 2 weeks in the heat, you've got a formulation failure. The second pillar is safety and microtesting. Water is life, as they say, so any water-containing product is a potential breeding ground for microbes. You absolutely must conduct microbiology testing or rely on validated preservative efficacy studies, we call it challenge testing, to ensure your preservative system works.
That challenge testing sounds expensive, especially if you're doing small batch runs. Is there any way around that validation?
There's not. No. That is a non-negotiable regulatory requirement. If your product contains water, you have to prove it won't harm the consumer from microbial growth. The cost is high, but it is the definitive proof of safety. And finally, you connect that safety back to the person using it with the patch test. You have to conduct patch testing with consumers or professional assessors to identify any sensitization risks. And you document everything meticulously: participant, demographics, duration, any adverse reactions.
Now let's step inside the lab and talk about the physical workflow. You've sourced your organic ingredients. The first big decision is how they're going to meet, which means choosing an emulsion type.
That's the starting geometry of your product, right? An oil in water, or OW, emulsion, is where the water phase is continuous. These give you light, non-greasy textures and quick absorption.
Perfect for serums or light day creams.
Exactly. Conversely, water and oil, or WO, emulsions have the oil phase as the continuous one. These create much richer textures, enhance emollients. They're fantastic for heavy creams, barrier products, no treatments.
And what if you skip the water entirely? Say for a balm or a facial oil?
Even those oil-based systems need careful formulation for a clean label. You'll rely heavily on plant-derived esters and stable oils like squalane and jojoba to align with that organic promise. And if you're using highly unstable actives, like potent antioxidants or some vitamins,
Yes.
you need to look into encapsulation approaches. These protect those delicate actives from breaking down too early from lighter heat, and it ensures a controlled release, all while staying COSMOS compatible.
Let's focus on that critical safety challenge. Preservation. If there's water, it has to be preserved, and COSMOS has a very limited whitelist. So what are the permitted options, and what are the technical hurdles they present?
The preservation strategy is crucial, and the narrow COSMOS constraints, they present a real technical hurdle. Your common permitted options include potassium sorbate, sodium benzoate, and dehydroacetic acid and its salts. The challenge is that these are often narrow-spectrum preservatives compared to conventional ones.
What does narrow spectrum mean in practice?
It means they're often only effective in a very specific pH range, or they don't cover the full gamut of potential contaminants: yeast, mold, bacteria. So formulators often have to use them in combination, sometimes at higher levels, which can potentially affect the final feel or scent of the formula. And again, you have to validate their efficacy with that mandatory challenge testing in your specific product.
That added complexity makes a lot of sense. You have to work so much harder to get the same result. Are there secondary ingredients that can help support the system?
Absolutely. We rely heavily on secondary stabilizers. Antioxidants like tocopherol vitamin E and rosemary extract are vital.
But they're not preservatives themselves, right?
They're not microbial preservatives, no,
Yeah.
but they fight the oxidation of the oils, which is a major cause of rancidity. So by extending the shelf life of your oil phase, they boost overall stability and support that consumer perception of freshness.
That is extremely helpful, especially for you, the listener, who might be thinking about starting small. All these regulations and audit requirements can sound, well, prohibitive. How does a small brand, or even just a dedicated hobbyist, translate all this complexity into a manageable workflow?
The key for small brands is discipline and smart prioritization, right from day one. You have to start with the feasibility assessment. Can you actually source these ingredients affordably and sell the final product at a price the market will bear?
Right, the business side.
Then outline a detailed bench testing plan that mirrors what the big labs do for stability. And most importantly, maintain rigorous batch documentation. It can be a simple spreadsheet, but it has to track every iteration, every result, every supplier's lot number. My advice is always to prioritize high-impact changes that give you compliance and stability at the same time. If you have a tight budget, invest first in a COSMOS organic aloe vera base or switch to a validated plant-based emulsifier. Those choices give you tangible gains in performance and market appeal immediately.
And the validation steps are still essential, even on a small scale.
Yes. Simplified stability checks, small-scale patch testing, and collecting robust consumer feedback. All essential before you even think about scaling up.
So once we've moved from the benchtop to a validated product, what are the final output requirements we need to nail? I'm thinking about the part the consumer sees, the labeling and the packaging.
Labeling is driven by EU and COSMOS rules, and it demands total transparency. The label must have a complete and accurate ingredient list using INCI names, and you have to explicitly state the organic status where it applies.
And the allergens again.
And we have to repeat. Clear allergen information for any fragrances or essential oils is non-negotiable for safety. You have to declare what is in the bottle, period. And since sustainability is part of the promise, the packaging has to reflect that. You should prefer durable materials like glass or high-quality PCR plastics.
PCR being post-consumer recycled plastic.
Exactly. Materials that have already been used and reprocessed. Prioritize designing for recyclability, think about refillable formats, and choose a minimal modular design. This reduces waste and simplifies end of life for the consumer.
That really does weave it all together: compliance, formulation, and market delivery. To synthesize this whole deep dive, let's bring back that case study from the source material. So, imagine a lightweight facial serum. It starts with a high concentration of COSMOS organic aloe vera juice as the base. It incorporates COSMOS organic rosehip oil for those targeted antioxidant benefits. It's built as a light, oil and water emulsion using a plant-derived emulsifier to get that quick absorption. It's kept fragrance-free or minimal, and it's preserved with a validated COSMOS-compliant blend.
Like the potassium sorbate and sodium benzoate we mentioned.
Exactly. That example just shows how you take all those regulatory hoops you have to jump through and translate them into a product that delivers on clean labeling, on performance, and on credible organic claims. And it's all supported by that indispensable living dossier of documentation.
That case study is the perfect showcase of successfully aligning cutting-edge formulation chemistry with the non-negotiable requirements of compliance.
And that strategic knowledge is exactly what we aim to deliver. A quick final thought from me. To succeed in this space, you have to master the subtle art of clean formulation while at the same time adhering to the hard science of regulation and being ready for an audit at any time.
Indeed. Building trust with consumers and, frankly, getting shelf space with discerning retailers depends entirely on your commitment to transparency, on your ability to produce that living dossier with every certificate, every batch record, every stability plan. That unwavering commitment is what truly separates the lasting brands from the transient newcomers.
And here's the final provocative thought for you to consider. We've talked about compliance through documentation, but how will ongoing harmonization efforts across global markets affect the future need for real-time supplier audit data? And what new technologies, maybe blockchain or advanced sensor systems, might emerge to make that farm-to-bottle traceability instantaneous, eliminating the paper trail entirely and building instantaneous trust? That question, I think, defines the next frontier in product integrity.